Hi, I'm Guilherme Rita, and today I'm going to show you the newest update for CSS Scan Pro. So we now have media queries. You can inspect, copy, and edit all media queries. So as you can see here, we're inspecting this element. There are two media queries here being applied at the same time. So it's the min width 1280 pixels and 1024. And we can see there's one media query that was not matched, which is the 1920 pixels media query. So media queries are basically like conditions you can do based on the user browsers that it will change the CSS of the page. So in this case, we have 3 media queries on this element and 2 are currently being applied. So the last one, all the CSS rules here are not matched and would not be displayed on this browser unless we go into a browser that has this specific resolution, which is 1920 pixels on the width. Even if we change here to background red, we still can't see any changes. But if we change here to background blue, yeah, of course we will see these changes. And if you resize the window, we can't see it anymore. It appears right here below with the other media query. It is not matched. So this updates in real time, and it changes the order of the media queries. So now these came up again, and let's delete this here. If you change the CSS on the visual editor, it will apply this CSS to the last media query. So as you can see here, it added the margin top from the visual editor into the last media query, which is this one, 1280. So depending on your browser, when you add it on the visual editor, it will add the code to different media queries. So you can also copy this code, and it comes with every media query of this element and also media queries of its child elements. So you can basically export whole components to CodePen or export it as a file or simply copy the HTML and CSS to use on your website. Also, the CSS changes also show for which media query you're changing the CSS. So now you can see the media queries here. If you're changing some element that does not have a media query, it will simply not show this part. Media queries also work when dealing with pseudo classes and pseudo elements such as hover. So if there's a media query inside that's affecting the hover pseudo element, you will see the normal CSS code first, and after, inside of it, you will see the media queries. This also applies to keyframes, which are CSS animations. You can see this is the normal code, and this is the media query code. And when there is nothing on the normal one, he will show simply empty pseudo element code. But when there is a media query inside, he will also show it. So it's very complete, and we've thought about every possible cases. You can also edit the media queries code inside keyframes. It also works. We had to basically rewrite the whole inspecting and editing code of the extension, so it's now faster. The code is now more reliable. We've made lots of improvements in the CSS inspection algorithms. The CSS code that CSS Scan Pro gives you when you're copying the elements is much more precise. We've also added 6 new box shadows on the visual editor. So let's change this button. Let's add some box shadow. If you come here in a visual editor and see the box shadows, these are all box shadows options that are ready to use. You just click and it will add the box shadow. You even don't need to write any CSS. So here you have now 91 options of different box shadows. So these last ones, the last 6 ones, are totally new. So you have here an interesting inset box shadow. In this case, this button is too small. This shadow is too big. But if you try with bigger elements, this shadow is a nice option. This 89 is also fun. It gives you a 3D look to the button. You can try and see which ones you like. So if you choose the shadow here in the visual editor and go to the code editor, you can see the box shadow code here. Another exciting things for Tailwind CSS users. So Tailwind uses a lot of double columns. So when you try to copy these Tailwind selectors with the previous version on CSS Scan Pro, it would copy the selectors in a wrong way and it would not work. That's because the CSS selectors weren't escaped. So now when copying Tailwind elements, the CSS Scan Pro will give you the right CSS selector and everything will work. We've also fixed 8 bugs, so the extension is now much more stable. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you and see you next time.